a good sense of renewal, right? Springtime comes and we all start to pay a little bit more attention to our bodies, maybe what we're eating, what we're exercising or not exercising. So I feel like this is for me, this is the real new year. It is not January in the dead of winter, at least where I live. And the springtime is just bringing in this like regenerative quality.
Yeah, there's been a collective consciousness, I think, in the last 5 or so years where people are really calling out when the real new year is. So it's almost become more common to be like, yeah, I think January 1st doesn't really feel like that. And you're right. It's more over here, the emergence of spring.
And I feel like those of us who are Aries also celebrate that part time of the year even a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Springtime, birthdays.
Absolutely. It's no wonder that it's our favorite season.
Do you find that you are there any particular rituals or things that you do around this time of year to get your body kind of in a good place and to feel good and
It's a good question because I think today's topic can be related to our diet and potentially fasting as we go out of the colder season and into the emergence of spring. I think there are traditions that would maybe have the dandelion and let go of the fats from the liver that we stored for the winter for sustenance. So yeah, let's speak about that today. I don't have anything that I've done over the years, but I'm interested in fasting at this point. I haven't done it. I have sort of a limiting belief from my ancestors, maybe that like if I'm not grazing, then, I'm in peril.
yeah, that
And
fast
yet,
equals or fasting is a detriment to your survival.
exactly. So I find that to be really limiting, and I want to break out of that because I understand that I have some fat reserves I need to lose. Came from years of cortisol and sugar addiction. And I believe that I will be more of a clear channel and more spiritually aligned if I can break through those limiting beliefs and not be afraid. And also talking about how some of the parasites in the gut microbiome would be playing a role in the cravings and the hunger pangs and stuff like that. So I would love to learn how to safely fast.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, come from a spiritual point of view, we often think of, people are always like, let's astral travel, let's get out of our bodies, let's do all this wild stuff. And it's like this time of year, like we really just need to be grounded. We need to be thinking about the foods that we're eating. We need to be kind of just making sure we're drinking enough water, like all the basic stuff. And like you said, maybe a fast can be supportive for people only and assuming they don't have issues with hormones, because that's always my big worry is that if you already have ongoing hormone challenges, then fasting can be really difficult. So it's
Mhm.
especially right, like the protocols that are often recommended for men do not work for us women. It's kind of along the lines of the cold plunging, right? We have to make sure that our hormone status is in like tip-top shape. If we're doing anything that is potentially going to make the body feel unsafe or insecure.
Oh, okay, because that would create like a maybe a spike in estrogen or certain
Thinking about cortisol, right? So if our sex hormone
cortisol.
cortisol rather than going to make sex hormones, and that means that we're going to have less for ourselves. And depending on where we are in our cycle, even can make a difference, right? Not to mention, just age wise, if we're at a certain point in our cycle, that can make a big difference. Like that last week before your period, that luteal phase, don't want to see people doing any cold plunges. You're just increasing stress hormones even more, and then we're not going to have enough progesterone to have, kind of a smooth time of things before our period hits. For those who are still cycling, obviously.
Yeah, for those who are still cycling, I have the great fortune now of being postmenopausal. I actually really love it. And when I was going through celiac before it was diagnosed, I thought it was hormones. I thought it was hot flashes, but it was related to inflammation. I've really had a very steady hormonal life, I would say, luckily over my over my time. But
Your time on this planet in this lifetime.
my time as a woman. what would you say to somebody who senses they want to fast? What's sort of a really safe kind of like beginner fasting practice? I know there's intermittent or 24-hour water. Can you speak about that?
Like juicing. I feel like even a half day of juicing is a great way to kind of just like a refresh your system. I don't really
Mhm.
subscribe to any of the ideas of detoxing, cleansing, all of this kind of language, which feels very patriarchal to me. It feels like there's something wrong with our bodies, there's something that we have to fix. There's, this idea that the body is broken. This is kind of just like a refresh. It's like allowing the body to take up nutrients in really high quantities. But then again, if someone has hormone issues, I probably wouldn't recommend anything as extreme as any kind of fast because that fiber is going to help their blood sugar stay balanced. And if you're just drinking juices all the time, and I like the idea of like a half day or maybe even 3 days if you're feeling pretty good hormonally. But anything like that where you're still getting some nutrients, I think when you're water fasting, there's a lot of things around minerals and blood sugar balance that you have to pay attention to. And oftentimes it's people who have extreme kind of eating patterns that are drawn to these things. And so that's what makes me even more anxious. You go from a standard American diet, and no offense to Americans, that's just the term that we use, right? A sad diet. You go from that to a heavy detox or a cleanse, your body's going to be purging all kinds of stuff that it obviously does not need, but there are more gentle ways to do that. There are more anti-inflammatory type diets that we could kind of like ease into. So that's always my approach is very much one of ease and comfort and just making sure that we're doing things at a pace that the body can keep up. Because of course, if you're detoxing and cleansing all these aspects and you don't have binders, a lot of that sludge is going to stay up in the body. So most importantly is making sure the elimination channels are open, right? We want to be like pooping regularly. We want to be sweating regularly. We want to be having good sleep. So I feel like those are oftentimes people want the spiritual experience without kind of being embodied, right? Without having a direct connection to the body and understanding like, hey, my body is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just maybe had a bit of a hard time. Maybe I haven't been feeding it the foods it needs. Maybe I have been going to bed later than I need to. Maybe I have not even been able to get up for a walk because I'm always at my desk all day long. And obviously, depending on people's, work habits, that is going to be more or less true. But for us as women, yeah, I'm definitely more of a gentle detox, gentle kind of experience of easing into things. So I don't suggest people go from a standard American diet into a 14-week cleanse or detox.
Yeah, yeah, that does sound very extreme. Um,
A little
I'm
bit easier when you're already eating well, and then you just dial it in, right? So that, my experience is that people go from, eating fast food every day, 3 times a day, into wanting to do a detox or a cleanse, and I don't think that's the safest way to
they
proceed.
want like a quick fix and
Exactly.
the body will go into shock.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't believe in quick fixes. I wish quick fixes, I'm sure they have their purpose at some points, but the vast majority of people, it's more like, what are the changes we can make consistently that I'm going to keep up with? So maybe for this spring, I go for a walk once a day. Maybe this spring, I, spend a little bit less time on the computer and on the TV, right? So these things that we can make more daily habits, right? The idea of like even a diet, right? If we think about the etymology of where that word comes from, it's like a diet literally has the word die in it. So just thinking about how do we make it more of a healthy lifestyle change? Healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And I guess it's the same way with how a seed would grow or how a spring flower would come up. It needs more water, it needs more light, it needs more warmth, and that happens like in a very slow time lapse, right? So maybe if we treat our body with the same kind of gentle incremental awakening, that would logically sound more in tune right off the bat.
Yeah, and some seeds, like you mentioned, need different things. So some seeds we have to stratify, right? We have to put them in the fridge or the freezer or bury them in the snow because otherwise they won't be able to bloom. So in ourselves, like even just knowing how different blood types, right? People might be interested in the blood type diet, and there's some, kind of legitimacy to that. So there is a very interesting to see how everybody really is unique. So saying everybody needs to be paleo or everybody needs to be vegetarian, I just can't. My own experience as a clinical nutrition, I just can't subscribe to that. But you noticed a big difference when you made changes to your diet, just in terms of being able to connect with your spiritual gifts. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, and I definitely have, and I feel that my celiac was sort of a hidden burden that was became a gift, and it pushed me into the categories of eating that I had to feel good. I had to be able to function, and sometimes we don't do those things for ourselves until we're painted in the corner. So, you know,
I think
but so if I can say anything to the listeners, I would say, when we get those knocks on the door of our body, take it as an opportunity to level up, and welcome it and say, how can I look at this differently? How can I adapt for, a newer, higher, possibility?
Yeah. Yeah, and what a difference it made just recognizing like, hey, there's this particular protein that's in so much of our food and it's causing me irritation, right? And celiac is not, it's not one where you're a little bit celiac, right? I think a lot of people sometimes think like, well, I just cut out gluten a little bit. Well, if you're celiac, any gluten will continue to do harm to the body and particularly the digestive system among all the others.
Yeah, and so that gave me a host of symptoms. Even after I stopped eating the gluten, it took so long to test foods, and I was so baffled by things I couldn't intake, like bananas or olive oil or squash. And I was just like, but I don't understand. And I would have to keep researching, but that makes me, I felt like I was a litmus test, you know? So, those were good, but now I've gone past that. And then I feel like I've added some more things in, and then I've been having, especially the last 2 weeks, I keep having these dips, and I'm like, and I seem to sort of have forgotten, like, what was I having that was working for me? Like, I slipped away from being in the pocket, and so I've been sluggish. And then today I thought maybe it's because I haven't focused on grains.
Oh, interesting.
I usually have like buckwheat for breakfast with fruit and spelt milk cooked and maybe some soaked walnuts and green tea. And then it's really good for me to have another grain in the day, usually quinoa. And that would be with vegetables. That would be lunch. And it's interesting you're saying some people, based on their blood type or other different predispositions, can be vegetarian. I have this ethical, or this idealization that vegetarian or even vegan is supposed to be what I'm doing, but I keep finding I need some Greek yogurt and I need some salmon. I do need those little bits, so it's down to that now is all I but I'm still like, am I supposed to get rid of that? But I actually don't feel good unless I have some of that in my diet.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just because there are certain nutrients, right? If we really like kind of drill it down to this like super micro level, there's certain nutrients that are only found in certain foods. Like vitamin D is a perfect example, right? The only kind of most natural food that it comes in is mushrooms, and because they're exposed to the sun. This is not a food that is commonly found, or this is not a nutrient that is commonly found in a lot of foods. So that's why most of us in northern latitudes end up having to supplement with it.
I've been taking a 7 mushroom blend this last couple of weeks. I've noticed some positive things, but then again, like I'm saying, like I've been kind of up and down a lot, so I'm not sure if it's that, or I feel like I don't remember what I was doing that was working, and then I'm out of it again, and I'm gonna have to get back. So then I start doing an elimination diet,
Yeah. And maybe
right?
like it's a perfect opportunity to just do like a little food journal, right? Oftentimes whenever I would see a new client, I would just like just give me an idea of what you're eating. There's no judgment. I'm not going to have any opinions about it. Trust me, I have eaten just as bad at points in my life. And so we have to meet people where they are and just doing a little like food journal for yourself and saying this is what I'm eating, and oh, I noticed more bloating with that, or oh, I noticed that I, maybe had more energy when I was including blueberries in my breakfast versus strawberries or whatever, right? We don't always have to be so granular because I don't feel like one food or one meal is really going to set us off track for the rest of our life. But if you're starting to see those patterns where you would like to have a little bit more energy, and then of course, depending on our age and what we're doing, right, that's going to have an impact on our hormones too, right? We want to make sure that we're maintaining our hormones as we age, right? So some of that can.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do the food journal, especially in this time that I've been going through. So how do you recommend it? Just a little notebook next to your, and then you finish it for the day, but do you kind of make notation about like mood
Yes,
and energy level as well?
that's my favorite. And for the longest time on my site, I always had like a breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. That was like one easy food diary type of thing. But then I love doing the food and mood, and I do that with I would
Food
pretty
and mood.
every client.
That's
It's like
yeah.
you may not realize that what we had for breakfast yesterday is affecting us 24 hours later, right? Because food
Yes.
to digest. We think, well, I just had lunch, so whatever I'm feeling after lunch is going to impact me. That's only true in cases of like allergies and like think of things like a life-threatening allergy would affect you more quickly, whereas we do have gut-mediated allergies. So this would be things that, I might have eaten 24 hours ago that now are starting to cause me problems. So things like the bananas or the coffee or things that are having an impact. But yeah, just making a little record. Like I love that idea. And I feel like any person who's kind of interested in their spirituality should also be interested in what their body's doing because this is the vessel through which we are experiencing our spirituality. If not for our body, we, we would not be having a human experience.
Yeah, okay, I'm definitely going to take to that practice right away. I've meant to, and I just haven't, it's like, I don't know why. So yeah, food and mood, a simple little notebook. Keep it kind of maybe with your card, your credit card, something that or your phone, keep it around. Could be on the phone. I prefer, I think, handwritten, but
Like
yeah, and
normally prep food is just a good idea, and then you could always add like snacks outside the house.
that's true. Keep it by the kitchen, keep it by the tea kettle.
Like, oh, and I never like I mean, for people who are calorie counting, they would weigh their food, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a fan of that, but I might put like 1 cup of sweet potatoes, roughly half a cup of quinoa, just so I have an idea, right? Because maybe it's not the
And me
food.
too.
Maybe I'm either eating too much or too little. So just having a rough idea, like, oh, I had 4 bowls of chili tonight, and like, no wonder my
I
gut.
can imagine. Okay, this is important. And then I want to ask you again about the blood type you mentioned. So, is that a commonly known thing to kind of correlate?
I don't know if it's commonly known. There's a framework, I guess, that this one particular author has been using for years, and he's kind of the one that everybody, if you Google blood type diet, it's the one that comes up, and it'll say like type O generally should eat lots of meat and lots of fat and lots of animal products, very little kind of grains and things that are difficult for them to digest, and it's mostly based on the digestive enzymes. So it's like naturally, historically, ancestrally, these blood types did not have the digestive enzymes to break these foods down. And then you'll have like type A, for example, more vegetarian focus. So it's like they don't have the digestive enzymes to break down heavy animal products. So I do find with, people
Wow.
who struggle with B12 issues, iron issues, certain blood types like type O are potentially more susceptible to things like anemia. So if, someone says like, oh, I've struggled with anemia my entire life. And so oftentimes I'll say, oh, are you type O blood? Because I mean, they tend to be fast metabolizers too. So there's a wonderful book on gut health and mood that maybe I'll put in the show notes so people can take a look at it. And I find it's a fabulous resource. It's by an integrative health practitioner in the US. And I've learned so much about the metabolism and how that affects blood type itself. So I find that's really interesting too. So the more,
I would love to see that book.
yeah.
Yeah, I would love to have a link to that and learn about that. I don't know my blood type. That's another thing. Do people always know? It's just like their birthday, or how do you find out? You have
Well,
to get.
I had mine done when I was pregnant. So for some reason they check that because they want to check the RH factor. So they want to make sure you're not your baby's positive. But I know different countries would obviously have different. But that was the only. If you give blood, I'm pretty sure that they have your blood type on there. So that's something if
I
people.
was just with my general practitioner for my annual checkup, and I wanted to get another blood panel. So I'm supposed to go in for that. So when I go to the lab to do that, I'll make a request that they identify it for me as well.
And you might be surprised to find out what you learn. I feel like the minerals especially will have a big impact on that because that generally those are difficult for our bodies to break down. It's easier for the body to digest things like vitamin A and et cetera, versus the minerals, calcium, magnesium. They're a lot harder and they're in less bioavailability in most of our food these days. So those are kind of ones that are, when people say like, oh, mineral deficiency as well, there's kind of some obvious reasons why people like it's like I wouldn't say it's a trend, but it's gained a lot of awareness in recent years.
Based on blood type, or you're just saying, yeah, yeah, okay.
Generally,
Wow.
your ability to digest food may or may not have an impact on blood type. And of course, there's things about the blood type diet that are not going to resonate and don't really make sense for modern life. This textbook was written quite a number of years ago. Uh,
Hmm.
we were just babes. We were just babies at the time. And
I'd
it
love to ask you about supplementation. I err on the side of whole food supplements, and I have taken regularly in the past month, I would say, Hawaiian spirulina
oh yes.
and the seven mushroom blend and sea moss powder.
Oh, yeah.
So those are kind of like my main ones that I'm working with to make sure I'm mineralized, get my B vitamins,
Good.
and the mushrooms I'm using to see if that creates a prebiotic effect to satiate the gut enzymes, so I have less of a feeling of craving if I could not eat for longer periods. Is it based on the gut microbiome?
Does the mushroom supplement, like, is it in a tincture format or there's some,
It's a powder that I mix in water.
yeah, so that it's possible. I'm just thinking if it was a tincture, then it may not have the fiber, the polysaccharides that would be more common in prebiotics. So that's the only thing that kind of came to mind. But yeah, if it's a powder, it should be a good option and kind of just see how your body digest with it. I think anything we can do to support our gut, right? So you mentioned sea moss. I love herbs like slippery elm and marshmallow root, and these are things that we can just like incorporate in our day to day that don't, always require us to overhaul our diet. Obviously, if you've got other complex or chronic health conditions, then definitely like we could do a lot with our diet. But for the average person who is eating generally well, I love those like just little hits of, okay, I'm just gonna do a little marshmallow root tea and maybe I'll do it with peppermint. I'll do it in a cold infusion, and you could see all the mucilaginous like
I have some marshmallow. I haven't really known what to do with it. I think I read it's a cold infusion that you leave for 4 hours or overnight in the fridge. Is that right? And
I
would you have that in the morning and anything you would want to recommend? Like how does that affect the body?
Yeah, so it is like super soothing to the gut, right? So anybody that's got any kind of digestive discomfort is basically kind of repairing some of that digestive damage. So like post celiac diagnosis, like this is a beautiful one to try and incorporate if people can tolerate it, obviously. None of the recommendations we're giving are blanket statements for anyone. It is totally based on your unique body and your unique system. But I love like a cold infusion, and then I do like a mint tea, so it infuses all together. So
Oh, nice. Oof.
the cold
Yeah.
is just like this beautiful peppermint, refreshing. I would mostly do that in the summertime, only because the more I've kind of attuned to things like traditional Chinese medicine and really supporting the gut, we want to have warm and hot foods versus cold foods, especially if we're in a winter type climate, as I am right now. And I feel like it's still fairly cool where you are.
Pretty cold. Yeah. I still was wearing my coat today. So yeah.
We just started to get a little peak of spring, so we still have 6, 7 feet of snow right now. But the colder drinks like that, I love them in the summertime because it'll kind of dispel some of that heat that can come from it just being so hot. And so trying to
Yeah.
things like that. But slippery elm you can eat warm. So slippery elm is one that I would just add into like porridge or add into, a warm smoothie or soup or anything like that. And it thickens it immediately. Like you can see it. So it has similar
I
properties.
hadn't thought of using it as almost like a cornstarch thickener.
Yeah, and
I took it when I was with my celiac before I knew what I was doing, but I did find it very supportive back then. Oh man, I had never heard of it. I found out about it from Dr. Barbara O'Neill.
oh wow,
Yeah, so that
yeah.
was slippery elm's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like if you had your buckwheat, like you could easily just mix that in as porridge. It just automatically thickens it, right? So, and for people who are grain free and doing more of paleo style breakfast, then it's like whatever, sometimes people use fruit, they can use all kinds of things, and slippery elm will thicken it up as if it were like a porridge type texture.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's one, I feel like it's one of my favorite supplements. When I go off it for a while, I'm like, oh, why? I feel kind of funny, and a little bit of slippery elm will just get you, get your gut back up to snuff.
Yeah, because it coats and it heals and repairs all at the same time. So yeah.
Similar properties to marshmallow root, except it's mostly used in a warm format, so that's why I love it. But yeah, they,
Okay.
yeah, those
Kind
little,
of like cousins. Okay.
think of them as like little boosts, right? It's like things that we can do that don't take a lot of effort. A teaspoon in your breakfast in the morning, a teaspoon maybe with dinner. Maybe you're doing like mashed sweet potatoes and you just want to add a little bit into that. It does have a flavor, right? So it's going to impact the
A little
fun.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I mean, so much of, when you think about spirituality, we always talk about this idea of intuition and trusting our gut, right? So
Yeah.
I saw this great meme the other day, and it was like, how can I trust my gut when my gut can't even digest dairy? Like, but perfect. It's a perfect reflection of how so much when we're doing spiritual work, it's coming back to the gut, and we're having to realize like our relationship with our gut is not great. Our relationship with our intuition is not great. So how do we, by supporting our gut, we're also supporting those areas of the body where intuition and spiritual gifts might reside. So I'm deeply interested in that. I consider myself a solar plexus person. If you are interested in numerology, you can kind of take a look at what your life numbers are, and it's like a very clear area when we have self-doubt, self-esteem, we're kind of doubting the wisdom that we're receiving. It's very much a reminder to tune into the body and to perhaps tune into that, massively important area of the body that so many of us only see as a problem when, kind of things go off the rail, right? When someone has like ulcers and then they're like, oh, I'm in a lot of pain, so I'm suddenly starting to pay attention to my digestion, but digestive health hasn't been good for a long time up until that point, right?
Yeah. And that's again that painted in the corner, and suddenly you're like, okay, I need to stop.
That's right.
Stop, drop, and roll. Put the fire out.
Totally. Diagnosis that comes and people, call me up and they're like, I was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. How did this happen? Right? And it's like, well, it didn't happen overnight for most people. It was a gradual, cyclical, constant, repetitive. And then again, maybe knowing their blood type would have helped them realize like, oh, hey, I'm supposed to eat more animal-based foods, or that is what, my digestive system would do a little bit better at, because they tend to be, you know, they're just different for the body to assimilate versus plants, right? And the other book, I'm trying to remember his Dr. G, but he writes the plant paradox. So he talks about the particular types of, we'll call them plant poisons, but they are aspects of plants that make it difficult for them to digest. They are essentially the plant's protection mechanism. So, it's one of the reasons why we soak nuts and fruits, because otherwise they would have the ability to, their body's just not able to absorb them because they've got these protective mechanisms on them. But his research talks a lot about different plants and why, his argument is that plants can be negative or positive depending on your genetic digestive makeup. So, and your as you mentioned, the microbiome can have a big impact on that too. Have you heard?
I wanted to ask you about binders. I have some activated charcoal. I have some bentonite clay. How do you feel about binders, as well as like when you are detoxing, and how that maybe relates to parasites that are driving our dietary choices beyond our realization?
Yes, that's a really good.
That's a loaded one.
Where even the impact that parasites can have on our mood, right? People don't even realize that. And you think about the full moon, and the full moon is one of the favorite times for parasites to come out in different stages. And so, no surprise that we have like literally the full moon kind of craziness that people talk about is directly
Mm.
perhaps what's going on in our gut. So, yeah, like binders, I would say the number one thing if you're trying to, support your gut and get your gut into a healthy position is to just make sure that you're eliminating properly. So that is making sure if you have any kind of constipation, then binders are just going to bung you up even more. So you're not able to actually get anything out of the body. Sometimes they'll support you, right? It depends on the binder and it depends what it's intended to do. But making sure that the elimination is happening first, and then the binders are going to help excrete any of those other kind of sludge that maybe will come from doing a detox or a cleanse. It really
Do they clean just the gut specific space, or are they cleaning from the cells in the blood?
Well, generally it's for me it's like physical matter. The we're not talking about energetics in this case. So for me it's less about the cellular level. I mean, they're binding to what the body has effectively said, I no longer need this anymore. And so then they will excrete. And the binders are meant to help that come out of the body. It depends on the binder too, right? So we might take activated charcoal if we have food poisoning, right? So there's two perspectives on this, right? The first perspective, which is the most common one, is diarrhea is bad. And depending on, the scenario for a child, diarrhea might be really bad, of course. We might consider it a medical emergency depending on where you are in the world and how long it's been going on and so many factors, right? Which
Hydration, yeah.
go beyond the scope of what, you and I could discuss. But so people might take activated charcoal thinking I got to stop the diarrhea that's caused by the food poisoning. The diarrhea is not the root cause. The food poisoning is the root cause. The E. coli or whatever is causing the symptoms, right? The second perspective is, I'm going to support the body to eliminate the food poisoning, the E. coli, the whatever. The diarrhea is the side effect. So do I necessarily, I mean, I don't necessarily want to take activated charcoal to stop that process completely because the body is going to excrete what it needs to excrete. Otherwise, the side effects could be even worse. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of as with anything, there's duality. There's a lot of nuance to it, right? It depends on, conventional medicine would say, well, stop the diarrhea immediately, but your body's still going to have the symptoms of.
Needs to purge it. Yeah. Hmm.
So maybe in moderation, right? We wouldn't necessarily take a detox level dose of something like that, but maybe you take a small amount just to allow the digestive system to kind of relieve some of that stress that it's experiencing. Have
Mm.
you ever experienced food poisoning yourself?
No, I haven't.
Lucky. I have had severe food poisoning several times, including one time where I got a little bit of spinach from the grocery store and I made this delicious soup out of it. Ate the soup. I was so violently ill. A couple days later, I'm like, I'm feeling better. I should eat the rest of that spinach. And then I forgot to put it in. I never ate it. And then within a couple hours or a day later, this food has been recalled for listeria, da da da. And I'm like, oh, my intuition.
Oh, it was the spinach.
Intuition knew. My intuition knew, and it basically
Yeah.
getting sick again. So, yeah, it's not pretty. It takes a long time to recover from that. Or
Woo.
it can. So
Spinach, because you assume it's gonna be like the burrito or something, but no, like it's a spinach.
it was the salad, and I say that as a former nutritionist. It was the salad.
Oh, it made me do it. Oh
And
gosh.
I think so. It's interesting too, just even thinking about spirituality, because you talk about this idea of fasting, right? Even if we think of like monks and other kind of, I don't know if you'd call them religious leaders, religious figures, that perhaps when we're in a very intuitive spiritual place, we don't need the food that we would need to go about our daily lives. We're not running the kids to soccer and school and this and that. So our body's metabolism is requiring more food just to power that energy system versus if we're in solitude and we're in meditation for days.
I will say, about 2 months ago, I did maybe 10 days of Zen.
Ooh.
And yeah, at home. But I was meditating, and then I was also doing walking meditation outside very slowly. And then I was doing eating meditation as well. And I definitely noticed a major shift in my hunger level.
Mm.
So when we do slow down and we are present and we really look at our food and we have the gratitude and we eat with mindfulness, I was eating less. I knew I didn't even need to put as much in my bowl just as I was serving. And I was like, oh, this is two portions, isn't it? And so I was having like extra meals made because it was just a total, and I was like, wow, it was completely radically different.
It's like the nervous system has slowed down and we're no longer eating based on other people's timelines, right? So other people who might be hungry, we're like, okay, well, I'm not really hungry yet, but yeah, sure, you can heat me up a portion, whatever. And
Yeah.
also the emotional impacts, right? So the emotional impacts of our day-to-day life and how much that can drive our desire and also the quality of our food, right? So you talked about cravings, right? A perfect example of when you're in the state of bliss and just connecting to source and being one with yourself and everything else.
Divine sustenance.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that that's best for me. I feel like some food would also support me really well, but not eating out of emotional need, I think, is a big impact, right? We're not.
And mindlessly, I graze. So even though they're healthy foods, I find I'll be looking at YouTube and I'm grabbing the soaked walnuts and then I'm making the tea. And I like to see myself like undoing the dishwasher and cooking. And I like seeing myself in the kitchen like that. And then and so you're not, I know there's like a meditation where you can eat a raisin.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And you chew it for like, I don't know, 150 times, something crazy, right? Like, but when you go into that mindset, you suddenly don't need any more than the one raisin. And so mindfulness with diet is probably, for me, I'm just calling it out, an even bigger component to than fasting would be.
Yes. Yeah. And I call that, I have a whole blog series on my website was specifically on intuitive eating. So how do we make eating more of an intuitive or spiritual practice? How do we slow down? How do we look at that raisin? We look at we're like, wow, I never noticed all these folds. Like I'm kind of like a raisin, a little wrinkly in places.
Like meet it with all the senses. One of the big things that I do when I'm in the meditation of eating is the gratitude practice and the understanding of the interbeing of everything. And I with each bite and like I'm looking at it and I'm chewing and with each bite I'm connecting as far as I possibly can with the network of what brought the food to me.
So like the hands that have had an impact in getting this to my table.
Yes, and even the hands that fed the hands that brought,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it goes really far, it goes really deep. And then I go into another thing, and this is really beautiful. I in my heart and my love and my presence and my gratitude give a bowl of this food spiritually to the person who is feeding me that's in that process and consider that maybe they didn't have the time to have a cooked meal for themselves.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It reminds me of.
Oh, it's so deep. And I just start crying and I start salting. I wrote this thing out, salting my food with the tears of gratitude, because then I started salting my food with the gratitude. And this is actually, I think I looked it up. There's something in the scriptures and biblical terms about um, salting your food with gratitude. Like it's a thing. So, but the tears, it's like, I mean, it goes exponential. And you can spend your whole meal like that. And you're like with the fishermen and the rice paddies and the cosmos and the sun. And I was like,
Marketers that made me choose.
I think about the administrative people for the grocery store. They're in the offices. I think about like the import people and like all the logistics. There's like so much in it. There's absolutely nothing that's not part of this bowl of rice and salmon and vegetables. And it's deep.
it's a reminder of how connected we are. So it reminds me of, that practice of leaving a place at the table for an ancestor. It's like so that they too can partake in this meal.
I don't know that one, but yeah, it's that type of idea, absolutely. And even if we're eating alone, we're not, right? And the first time it came to me, well, because I was having a salmon, and I was just so grateful. It was like a Sunday night, and it was raining outside, and I set the tone. I have some like this trumpet player I like to play. I'll light a candle, and just take a few breaths and really ground in. And I was so comforted by this warm meal in the night that was the first time I really started thinking about the fishermen out on the cold Atlantic waters because it's wild caught. And I'm thinking like, did he have this kind of meal today?
Yeah.
I sort of doubt it. I sort of doubt anybody cooked him a home cooked meal. And that was when I was like, if I just imagined that I duplicated the bowl and pushed it across the table to him.
I love it.
Yeah. And so that was so deep. And again, that's when I started to be like, I just start crying with my food. I'm like,
You
but
literally
how
are salting your food.
yes, yes. And yeah, I mean, we rarely touch upon that in our lives, we're so disconnected. And so, but yeah, most of the time, honestly, I'm not like that. And I am, doing the dishwasher and like, I'll be like shutting the dishwasher door with my foot while I'm like, I think that's from years of momming,
Yeah, of course, of course.
you're like, you go gadget.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that just thinking about the shorter chain, right? In that case, it's like it's a meal literally from around the world. And then the difference between a meal that you might make in your backyard or in your own little gardens, it's like you're more limited depending on how much, I live in the city, so where I don't have any land. But it's like, oh, I could grow a ton of vegetables, but then, what else am I needing? What else am I needing the help of community to bring to my table so that I have a well-rounded, for me, meal. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually some grains and some proteins, right? And you're not going to have all of that in your location. But that you're reminding me of something that I also, having lived in cities most of my life, I haven't been connected to growing my own food. And I think that's definitely one of the most nourishing,
Yes.
deeply nourishing experiences
Great.
to grow your own food and bring it right to your table. I mean, it's like how we've come so far, we forgot. Like, yeah, that's the basics,
Well,
guys.
and that's the foundation, right? It's like, thank you to my husband for getting the manure. Thank you to my son for helping me, weed the garden, whatever. It's like all those things that we're not even taking into consideration because it's like, oh, now I'm eating tomatoes that I planted or that I harvested back in July, and it's the middle of February, and it's like, wow, like how nourishing it is for these foods to keep giving back, right? And that they, you've canned them or frozen them or dehydrated them or whatever you've done, and just change their properties so you can enjoy them in different ways.
Yeah, I would like to do more of that this summer. I know there's we have beautiful regional produce here in France where I'm living. But they do still, even if it's at the marché and it looks like it's in the stall and it's exceptional, but there's certain things that you're not really going to have. Like we just had all the strawberries out, and no, there's no strawberries, right? So, I was thinking for the summer when the real local organic pops up outside, like the real one, and it's the soil here in our community. I
Terroir.
want it's the real one, terroir. I really want to prepare ahead. How can I can some things? How can I preserve some things? And yeah, do that for like when it's winter again, and I know that I have that connection and the highest quality and the shortest distance. Like when you're creating a food co-op, you're thinking of all these elements, and one of the elements is distance. So
And
yeah.
that just kind of integrates this, perspective of food coming from all these different places, right? Globalization. It's like I can get rice from the other side of the world, without even a second thought in my little town in Aurelia, Ontario, Canada, right? So it's a very different kind of perspective, perhaps, than, you know, being able to grow your own strawberries in your own backyard.
Hmm. Yeah. I love when they're like still warm from the sun, you
Oh,
know.
I How how delicious would it be to dehydrate some of those local strawberries from like the island and just like dehydrate them and have them in the little middle of winter? Like just thinking about comfort and just the sweetness and the like take me back, right? Take me back to summertime.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. There's a point where there's a lot of strawberries here on the island. There's a whole strawberry farm
Oh,
and
wow.
overflowing. So yeah, I will get a dehydrator, put it on my list now.
I love it. Yeah, did you notice anything else like how your body shifted or changed as your diet changed when you were kind of deepening your own connection to your channel and becoming the clear channel that you are?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to speak on sobriety. I think we spoke about that last time. And when we're outsourcing a lot of things because of like our subconscious programming or our emotional needs, right? And a lot of that happens with the foods we're eating. And, I was having coffee every morning and I was having it with cream and sugar. And just having that in the morning between the adrenaline reserves being, overused, the sugar was activating a kind of hunger in me that I wasn't in control of my appetite. And the cream is also really just a lactose. So that's a terrible way to start the day. And it's such an ingrained habit that, if you smell that coffee or you get out of bed, like the moment I would open my eyes, I'd be like, I'd jump out of bed for the coffee. So that was really interesting. That was interesting to find out.
We have
Yeah,
to like give ourselves grace because it really is a blood sugar roller coaster, right? We're basically hitting our body with a bunch of things that may or may not provide us with the best kind of.
it's such a it's false energy, really. It's adrenal, download and you need your adrenals for real things.
Fight the
And
time.
so and so like between the adrenal and then I had a one hitter of cannabis, right? So it's just a little bit, but then I would have that and that was another stimulant. And then I would have the one hitter maybe every hour or two throughout my day. And that was my stimulant.
Pick me up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I would have my crash from the coffee happening around 4. And then I'd start thinking about wine, and would have white wine with ice, right? So starting around 5 o'clock, I'd start having white wine with ice, sometimes spritzer, but that was really just sugar. Okay, and I had a habit. That was just the routine I was in my day, and that's what got me through. But when I ended up having celiac come into the picture, I couldn't do any of those things anymore. So first thing that happened was I moved to France and cannabis is not legal here. It was legal in New York. And so I wouldn't have broken the habit, but I didn't know anywhere to get it, and I wasn't ready to ask anyone. And so within a couple of weeks, I just I quit cannabis completely, and that was major. That was so important for me. Um, and then
Like the withdrawal, the everything probably shifted for you.
I realized looking at it now, it would just be too stimulating for me now. Because I had built up a tolerance. You build a tolerance to these things. So it was my homeostasis. It wasn't like so wild. It might sound wild, but it was
Notice
my
you came off it. It's almost like there was probably, your own kind of emotional, physical, spiritual detox that happened after that because it was such a big part of your life that even your habits had to change. But of course, moving to a new country probably there were a lot of things that changed.
This is a big deal. So the cannabis was gone. And then I had a shaman come into the picture. I thought he was a sound healer and he was a shaman and he did an intake. And the first thing he said, coffee is like a bomb for your intestines. And he also did a ceremony with me that found where the wine habit, because I knew I had a habit, but I didn't feel I was addicted, but I was in the habit of it. And I wanted to stop, but I didn't really understand why I kept doing it. So he found in my energetic body addiction to sugar, and he found in more like my astral body, my father who passed away, who was an alcoholic, and related to guilt and the Catholic Church. And there was like this whole thing. And I truly feel that ceremony he did with me, he didn't even touch my body. He read my energetic body, he pulled things out. For the first time in my life, it closed the door to wanting the wine. I've never had a drop again. I don't even think about it. It's not even, I'm not even, it might be a year. I haven't even counted the days. It's a non-issue. And that's what I wanted. So the funny thing, the coffee was the hardest thing.
Of course.
And you're telling me that's the elephant in the room the whole time. Watch out, guy. That's a big one.
Wow.
That's the biggest culprit. And I had to get to the point. I did this visualization. I said to myself, because I couldn't, the reaction was so strong. I said to myself, I have to take a hot iron to my hand before I have coffee. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. But this is how clear I needed to delineate in my mind that it's not a gray area, Nicole. Because
Yeah.
when addiction does that to you, it was and so I got rid of that too. I'm a matcha girl now.
Wow. That's your like
Oh, that's the main thing. And then not having any seed oils. Seed oils are very prevalent in American food anywhere. Like if you're going to have French fries at the restaurant, they're cooked in seed oil. Here they're cooked in beef fat or olive oil. Like they're not, there's no seed oils here.
wow. Wow.
None. None.
It's
I don't
wild.
eat a lot of packaged food anyway, but there's none.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of sunflower, but there's zero canola.
Yeah. Isn't that
So
wild? Like, I'm always struck by that was part of my, and maybe we talked about this last time, but that was part of my awakening, really to kind of see what chemicals, pesticides, pollutants our country, I'm in Canada, allow compared to European countries. And Canada is very similar to the US. US has a little bit more that they allow, but that was very much like so eye-opening. It's like, well, if other countries can grow this food without using X, Y, and Z, why are our countries in the West still growing our food with chemicals that are known? Chris,
well, we know the why, but it's more about how do we protect ourselves and how do we do better for ourselves
you're
and
doing things differently as it is. It's a cost.
but it also feels a little bit like sometimes it's a matter of time until those things start to get through the gate over here too. So you still have to be vigilant and realize, what's going on. And just to speak on glyphosate is really what we want to touch upon. That's in the wheat and the crops and everything. And I want to be solutionary about this. Is aloe vera gel important to help detox glyphosate or baking soda? Do you have anything about that you are
I
aware of?
I use remedies, like I use energetic remedies, homeopathic remedies, flower essences to detox things like glyphosate and its cousins. But
Mhm.
I feel like aloe would be amazing just to support the digestive system overall. I haven't heard that connection specifically between aloe and glyphosate in similar.
Yeah, I've been starting to hear more about it. It's funny. It's like it has its own consciousness. I've got a plant in my room, but I started thinking I should incorporate it, and I don't know how to eat it. Like I don't know what to do. But then I started seeing things pop up, and I started seeing this is going back to biblical times. This is the ancient, it's called like the giver of life, or it's really an auspicious healing on a multi-dimensional level plant that I haven't touched upon, but I would love to.
There are chemicals in it that generally are extracted when they process it, and that's the kind that we want. We want like the edible form of aloe. Like the aloe I take is like distilled of all of the chemicals that could be difficult. So generally, for most people, I don't recommend the whole leaf form, which is the kind that still has the chemicals present in it. So it's the more distillate version, which is generally better for most people. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so that's something like there's a whole leaf version and then there's the kind of extracted version. And normally I would say whole leaf all the way, but these chemicals can be really difficult on the body to process. So
Okay, this is really good to know. So usually you find that at the health food store and it's in the brown jar in the fridge, right? And so you take like a tablespoon a day or in your water in the
yeah,
morning kind of thing.
it's interesting because I just was looking at the study that someone had posted. I think it was like, I don't know, it's within the last year or so because everybody has started talking about it, but just 30 to 60 milliliters, so whatever that's like 2 ounces, up to 2 ounces of aloe a day has been shown to reduce or eliminate all the markers of autoimmune thyroid issues. So anybody with Hashimoto's or similar, it's like has returned their thyroid to baseline. So the aloe is curious to see if they'll talk more about that, but that's something that
Wait, so yeah, so hold on. There's things going on there.
probably things we can't talk about on YouTube.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, there's potentiality there, and I would love to invite aloe in to my life and my heart and my energetic body to really interbe with it with her
People
and know
might
her.
want to do that as an energetic practice too. So like aloe itself is a beautiful flower essence. It's really, connecting to us to other people. So for people who feel isolated and outside of themselves, that can be a really cool flower essence to bring in. The one I use is from Arizona. Um,
Wow. Yeah, we're going to have another whole show based on flower essences. It's something I don't know anything about, but you've touched upon just a glimmer a couple of times, and it sounds like a completely amazing universe.
It is. It is. And it's really how do we support ourselves on the energetic level with everything else going on, right? Like, you've probably heard the saying like energy first, right? Like do the energy first, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, everything else will fall in line. So I like it just as a way to support the body. And yeah, we definitely do a call on that for sure. I would love that.
Yeah. So do you feel like that's a good place for us to pause until our next meeting?
Anything else you kind of want to touch on about diet, food, the body, spiritual connection? Anything
Um,
share with people?
Well, dandelion's coming up in my mind since you're saying that. I'm just intuitively getting dandelion. I know there's leaves out there, and I would like to gather some leaves. How much dandelion should we be eating at this season? Like, if it's just the leaves, or maybe boil the heads of the flowers, or you don't usually grab the whole root, but maybe take the root. And is there any way that
I mean, some people will do like a tincture of dandelion, and then that would be like good support for the organs, right? So liver, kidneys, it might be supportive for something like that. The roots, generally, people will harvest and clean off, roast, and then we'll use it as a coffee substitute. So I don't know if you've ever seen that, but a dandelion
I
chicory.
have dried roasted dandelion root, and I do simmer that in some water for like 10 minutes, maybe 2 tablespoons in a cup or two, and I have that.
Because we talked about going off coffee, and yeah, that's a perfect kind of option for people if they're trying to kick that habit and it's non-caffeinated. And then we'll also support your body because it brings that beautiful dandelion benefits into
So
our.
yeah, it's really I feel like it's based on or I've heard that it's based on cleaning up fats that we're storing in the liver from the winter. So that's why we see it in the spring, because it's our natural medicine to clear off from traditionally being like eating more heavier foods in the winter.
Yeah, and some people will just take the leaves and make like a salad. Like they'll add some dandelion into their salad. So you get like a salad from the marché or from your local farmer's market, and you can just add a little bit, and obviously being mindful of its origin, its source, right? We're not using dandelions from the side of the road where the cars are driving by. We're going to try and find an isolated area, maybe somewhere, as close to home as possible. So just kind of being mindful. We're not going to go wandering on neighbors' yards. We don't know what they've done to their lawn until all the signs start showing up saying we've just put all the pesticides on there, right? The irony of our lifetime is that we are putting pesticides on dandelion using the chemicals that are meant to help and support our bodies. Like, could we get this any more incorrect as humans, right?
Yeah, it's that inversion that we're aware of and working within.
We do like a fermented version of like a mead, right? Like a honey-based dandelion drink that's fermented. It generally will produce alcohol, so people sometimes used to use that in Middle Ages, etc. time. And I feel like these practices are coming back because people are becoming more connected with the land and what the food that's freely available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a garden that you grow in the summer? You do?
My whole front yard. I have a little bit in the backyard, but we have some giant willow trees and maple trees, so we don't get the full sun exposure in the backyard. So I might do like some squash and stuff. I do tomatoes in the backyard. I have I set a manifestation a number of years ago when we moved to this property, that I wanted somebody to gift me a boat, and I was going to take that boat and I turned it into a giant garden. So that's exactly what I did. Somebody sent me a message on one of the local marketplaces, and he was like, I have this 16-foot boat. Do you want it? And I'm like, absolutely. It was literally perfect condition. I mean, I had to put holes in it just to allow for
Right.
drainage. So that my backyard is a giant boat. And then the front yard is all raised garden beds. So that's people often they often follow me on Instagram just for the gardens, and that's pretty much just talking about.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I have a garden here, and there's some beds, but I don't really know what I can grow, but I would like to.
I feel like
I feel like I need someone to help me.
this will be
Or
your.
maybe I need a boat.
That's right. Well, maybe that'll be a good topic for another call too, that we could talk about simple ways, because I feel like I live in the city, and if I can grow literally the amount of food that I grow, like people are often amazed. And I'm like, we have really good soil, over the years, just improving it, but we're also really close to the lake. So we live across the street from the lake, and that water allows us to have water basically in the raised garden beds in the springtime and well into the early part of the summer. So I'm not watering, from city water that's been, they've done whatever to it. This is literally like the water, the nutrients, the minerals, everything. So that I feel like that's a little bit of a secret. And I use some electroculture type things too to kind of bring the energy and allow things into the garden that, and making sure my fairy friends are well supported and all the things, right? Little fairy houses and little.
Oh my God, okay, so let's make that our next conversation because seasonally it's very pertinent to commence the garden season with such an inspiring story. So,
And then that'll be perfect for March too, because the with the equinox coming, it'll be good to start thinking about our gardens.
absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for this chat. I enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, it's like stimulating. We could talk for a long time. That's why we're doing this because we got a lot. We got a lot.
Probably get some nuggets out of there that they might want to research or dive into more for themselves. And so it's really like my whole goal is always just empowering people. How can you get 1% healthier, 1% better every day, right? And you just do that.
Yeah,
Never.
yeah. Again, it's those incremental things. It's not the drastic things. For me, my takeaway is the Food and Mood Journal.
Yes.
And I'd love to see some of those books linked in below with the blood type, and I will check my blood type when I go to the lab next week. So
Yeah, and then we can chat more about that in the future.
yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
right. Thank you so much.
So I will see you so soon.
Okay, ciao.